Hello, you are watching this video because you or someone you love has eczema. And if I haven't met you before, I'm Dr. Melissa Raymond. I'm a holistic eczema and allergy coach. And I wanted to share with you the core reason behind why many people try lots of different things for eczema, dietary changes, different personal care products, or different moisturizers, maybe different medications, and nothing sticks. Maybe they've even tried to do some breath work and stress management, but really nothing actually addresses the root cause of eczema here, and therefore you're stuck with eczema. This also, what I talk about today, is the reason why you probably are experiencing flare-ups where you just don't know what caused that flare-up. So it may be that you ate the same food last week and that was fine, but this week you're eating it and you're coming up in a reaction. So this explains why. And I will talk to you at the end about, what process that needs to happen, or one of the processes that I use to help address this issue so that the inflammation in the body causing the eczema can reduce, and therefore the symptom flare-ups are much reduced as well, and often completely clear. It also means that when we reduce inflammation in the body, the other things that we've tried that haven't really stuck before can start to begin to stick and work. Okay, so here I'm going to start here with my inflammation bucket. We all have capacity for inflammation in our body. But lots of different things contribute to that, right? So I've got a list of things here. We have our ability to detoxify. If we can't detoxify, or our detoxification channels are blocked or impaired from a genetic perspective or a physical perspective, our lymphatic system is not happening well, or our detoxification process in our body with our organs isn't quite there, then this will contribute to inflammation, right? We also have genes, which play a small part in the role of eczema, a much smaller part than we've been told, right? Stress plays a really big role in eczema, and you might notice that when you're stressed or your little one is stressed, then their eczema is worse. And this is a really big reason why we can sometimes tolerate that food and other times we can't tolerate that food, or sometimes we have a flare-up and we're not sure what happened, and another time we don't have a flare-up and nothing really has changed. Stress is a really big component here, and it can be the day-to-day stress, or it can be this chronic stress, which is what I primarily deal with working with my clients. With my private clients, it's about 85% to 90% of the work I do is dealing with this, and then the eczema can begin to clear. The inflammation can come down and the eczema actually improves, and I'll explain why in a minute. So stress is a big component. What we eat and what we drink has a really big role to play in eczema as well. So food, if we're eating for good gut health, if we're drinking for good gut health, or we're not, that will play a big role as well. So things that will impact negatively on gut health. And by the way, if you haven't heard much about gut health, this is a big component of the puzzle, but for some people, been working on gut health for a very long time, this is the reason why the gut health work hasn't stuck. So when we're looking at food, things that will impact negatively on gut health will be things like processed foods, food additives. We've also got medications here, so antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, proton pump inhibitors, so the reflux medications. They are a small snapshot of some of the medications that will negatively impact your gut. Why are we concerned about this? Well, everything's linked, okay? There's nothing here in isolation. But from a research perspective, research shows that people with eczema have impaired gut health, and therefore it is one of the places where I will add on a couple of foods into the diet, usually it's just 2, to help improve gut health alongside the work that I do for chronic stress. And you might think, oh, my baby isn't chronically stressed, but they still have eczema. I will address that point a little bit. So hold your horses. I will address that point in a minute. So food, and if we're drinking, beverages with artificial sweeteners are known to negatively impact gut health as well. So are we drinking chlorinated water? Chlorine is designed to be antibacterial, and it will affect the bacteria in your gut as well, negatively. Environment, we have things like mold, electrical towers, if we're living near power lines, that will also impact on inflammation in the body. And just taking one step back, when we're eating foods that are processed or have food preservatives or additives in there, lots of sugar, that is really, really inflammatory as well. So this is going to fill our bucket. So all of these things, maybe some of them don't apply to you. You're living in a mold-free home. You're not near power towers. Perhaps you turn your Wi-Fi off at night, so you're not exposed to those electromagnetic frequencies overnight. You don't have any recent chemical spills in the area, or you're not near factories that have that use a lot of chemicals. Then that's excellent. Your bucket will be less full here from those things. But when we're filling up this bucket, this point where it starts to overflow is the point where your body can't handle this level of inflammation anymore. And that means that you get symptoms. Okay. And this is why eczema symptoms will flare up and down, and they will fluctuate, sometimes for what seems like unknown reasons. Heavy metals has another thing to play. So if you've got amalgam fillings and mercury fillings, they will also increase the inflammation in your body. Chemicals, so thinking about chemicals that we use every day at home, so cleaning products, those terrible wall plug-in perfumes and things, please get rid of them. They are just pretty toxic. Personal care products that we're using, moisturizers, shampoos, conditioners, all of those things will affect our skin microbiome, but they will also potentially get absorbed into the body. And a lot of them contain known skin irritants, they contain known allergens, and they contain known lung irritants as well. So if you've got allergies or asthma, it will add to the inflammatory load here. So just, thinking about soaps, all those sorts of things will impact on inflammation in the body. Exercise, whether you exercise or not, that will also have an impact on inflammation, because exercise can help with detoxification. It can help with moving our muscles. We're moving our lymphatics, our lymph fluid in the body, so things can clear. Our lymphatic system has wonderful abilities to help detoxify and bring out waste from places in our body where it needs to be removed from the body. So exercise will help that. And then other lifestyle factors, like things like watching on TV. Are those things really stressing us out? Are we watching the news 24/7? Are we watching scary thrillers that we are just in a heightened state of stress? Are we watching lots of end of the world doom sort of movies, that sort of stuff, or TV shows where we're in that fight-flight response, right? So speaking of fight-flight response, this brings me to the sympathetic nervous system. Stay with me here. This is really crucial for eczema. So when we have our sympathetic nervous system that gets switched on, basically our nervous system can be divided into two parts, and they balance, they're kind of on a scale. One's up and one's sort of down, and the other one's up, the other one's down. So our sympathetic nervous system, it's our stress response, it's our survival response. Fight, flight, freeze, you might have heard of that before. So if we see, in the day when we were trying to run away from lions and things like that, sympathetic nervous system would kick in. We would run, or we would freeze, or we would fight, whatever decision, whatever a body decided in that moment. And that brings us into a state of readiness and alertness, and all the blood flow moves away from our gastrointestinal system, away from our healing system, but into our muscles and into our brain, where we need to be ready to go, ready for action. Okay? That's fine if we're looking at that on a one-off occasion when the lion comes, right? But these days we tend to be in this sympathetic nervous system a lot. So if you can't sleep, if your digestion is poor, if you've got eczema, this means that you are in this state more often than not, okay? You chronically got your sympathetic nervous system going. And this contributes to chronic stress, right, when we're in this mode. And it means that we're in chronic inflammation, chronic being long-term, right, longer than 3 months. But if we've got a little one with eczema, that means that we're heading in that direction of being in chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation, for those of us here watching this, presents as a physical symptom, as eczema. Some people, it might be an autoimmune disease, it might be allergies, it might be asthma. But today we're talking about eczema, right? So things that contribute to us being in this sympathetic nervous system state is where we're chronically, switched on. And sometimes, even as a baby, this can be passed on generationally. This is going to blow your mind if you haven't heard it before. We are cells, we are eggs in our mother's ovaries when she is a fetus in our maternal grandmother's body when she's pregnant, right? So we're actually half present as an egg when our grandmother is pregnant with our mum. Okay, so that means we're physically present. So any stress that happens to our maternal grandmother while she's pregnant with your mum or our mum means that that impacts us immediately because we're actually physically there as an egg. Okay, so this is how trauma gets passed on through generations. Research shows this very, very clearly in Holocaust survivors that grandchildren of people who went through Holocaust are more likely to display PTSD, symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, even though they haven't been through that on the outside, so to speak, even though they were there as an egg, right? So this gets passed on. Anything that we haven't processed emotionally in our lives will get stored in this inflammation bucket, and it just sits there 24/7. And these emotions and this sympathetic nervous system is just ticking all around in the background 24 hours a day. And so what I mean by those stored emotions is that if we have an event that is stressful to us or traumatic for us, and we don't feel safe enough to process that at the time, or we don't feel we have the capacity to process it at the time, we don't know how to process it at the time, then it gets stored in our body. And traditional Chinese medicine says that certain emotions are stored in different organs. When they're stored in the body, they can present later as a physical symptom. And so can you see how trauma from, our maternal grandmother can just sit there as stress if those emotions haven't been processed by her at the time? So this is just ticking along in the background. And that's so why that sometimes our babies have eczema from a very, very early age when we think they couldn't possibly have this trauma and stress. They've had a fabulous life. They just poop, they sleep, they get fed. Easy going, right? But that is not the case because of this generational trauma, and research supports that as well. So when we've got this going in the background, that's just there all the time. And so an example of this is if you think to a time that was traumatic for you, it may not have been a big trauma. It may be that you got in trouble at school. And every time you think about that thing that happened 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, you're right back there and you can feel those emotions that you felt back there as a child. Okay? And even things that happened before we can consciously remember, our subconscious remembers everything, and so it still gets stored there. Okay? So those traumas or those traumatic events for us get stored in our body if we can't process it at the time. If we can process it at the time and we can have a cry about it and we can talk about it and we can feel it in our body and then let it kind of wriggle through, then that is fine. But for many of us, that's not been safe. We're taught not to do it. We've learned not to do it. And that just gets stored in our body. So here, for some of us, this chronic stress, it might be 3/4 of your inflammatory bucket because this is basically leads to inflammation. So what I do as an eczema and allergy coach is I start here. I don't start with really detoxification or stress management where you say no to more things and you have more time and rest and sleep and things like that, because sometimes that's just not possible. I also don't start with the environmental stuff because sometimes you just can't pack up and move house if you've got a moldy house. Though if you do have mold, it's really important to prioritize it as much as possible to have it properly remediated or get out if you can, because that will also really fill up your bucket and just be there all the time in the background. So food will change day to day, water will change day to day, exercise will change day to day, lifestyle factors can change day to day, but the environment, if you're sleeping in a moldy home or if you've got this chronic stress from past events that have been stressful for you that you haven't processed, that will just sit in your bucket all the time. And then can you see here, there's not a great deal of capacity here for all of these other things to fit, and therefore you just tick into that symptom, you pass the symptom threshold, and then eczema's having another flare up. Okay, so what I do is I work here, the chronic stress place where we actually go back and process those emotions. I don't take you back and have to relive those emotions yourself, because that can be re-traumatizing itself and that can be really dangerous. So making sure that we're working really carefully with you and you're really supported. But what we do is we go back and we clear out this chronic stress. And sometimes it's really quick. So we empty this bit of the bucket. And then you've got this beautiful space now. Can you see when we clear out this chronic stress, the bucket is emptier, and then you've got more room for other things to fill, or hopefully not, and therefore you're not tipping into that symptomatic threshold for flare-ups. The other thing is that when we when we're switching off this sympathetic nervous system, which is what we want to do, we come to a beautiful place, a place where we can stimulate through some really simple exercises, and also just dealing with the chronic stress will help this. But we actually are then increasing the parasympathetic nervous system. And this one here is known as the rest and digest nervous system. So this is what we want to be in most of the day. We can't be in it all of the day because we'll probably just be resting all day, not being able to do anything. We do need little hits of the sympathetic nervous system to get us going now and then. But the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. When your body is in this inflammatory stage, you cannot heal. And when your skin just cannot heal. It's prioritizing survival. Okay, we're running away from that line. We don't need to heal our skin. The skin is going to be okay. But when we're in this parasympathetic nervous system, this is where our body comes into a place of calm, and we're able to rest and digest, and most importantly, heal. Okay? Making sense? So this means that our bucket is emptier. We're not hitting that inflammation. We're not in that chronic state of inflammation all the time. Yep, we might have day-to-day stresses, but they're not going to impact us as much. We might have a day or two where we're eating absolute rubbish, but that's not going to impact us as much because our bucket is much emptier. And in this parasympathetic nervous system, this is the place where we can heal. And so for many of us who have had eczema for years or decades in this chronic response, I've had clients who have had eczema for literally 5-6 decades, and we've had a few sessions together, and really with just a few tweaks of adding in some gut health foods, but primarily working on the clearing out, reducing the input from the sympathetic nervous system and allowing the body to then come back into a parasympathetic nervous system state, this rest and digest and heal state. They've been able to really notice 80-90% improvement in their symptoms after a few sessions. Even those with going through topical steroid withdrawal, where the skin is flaking off the whole body and there's open skin wounds and things like that, or some of my clients who have had MRSA, staph infections, working on this point really just helps unload the system, get them back into this parasympathetic nervous system, and their skin just is able to heal. The other things that they're noticing, not just the skin healing, but their sleep improves, their digestion improves. Maybe they've been constipated. and go open their bowels once or twice a week, which also, if you're not opening your bowels every day, that will add to inflammation. It's adding to the toxin load of your body and will increase inflammation. So they're able to digest their food better, their bowels start moving, their sleep is better, and they're able, actually their mood is better too. So going from depression to feeling grateful and feeling thankful and calm and peaceful, all of this is interconnected. All of it helps, right? And this stage, your gut health can improve as well. So it's all interconnected, but when we start here in emptying, half of this inflammatory bucket, things start to stick better. Things start to seem a whole lot easier and things start to flow. So the way that I do this, working on the sympathetic nervous system work, is as I said before, we just take you back to this. I take you back to what emotions you're feeling when you think about your eczema. So if you'd like to, you can finish up now if you want to, but I'm going to take you through an exercise that just gives you a little bit of insight into just switching that sympathetic nervous system dial down, turning that dial down, and then switching on the parasympathetic nervous system dial, turn that dial up a little bit. So if you're able to right now, you can sit down if you're able to, and just close your eyes and place one hand on your chest. And just now breathe into your hand on your chest and out, just making that out breath a little bit longer than your in breath. And another breath in and out. Just notice that hand rising and falling on your chest. And now I want you to place your other hand on your belly. That's right. And just notice that your hand is rising and falling on your belly with each and every breath. Just bring some breath into your belly there, making the out breath a little bit longer than the in breath. And now just notice that both hands are rising and falling with each breath. Beautiful. Now just rest your hands down by your side. And I want you to notice in your body what you are feeling when you think about your eczema. So not necessarily the emotion at this point, but what are you feeling in your body? Are you feeling really itchy all over your skin? Is there a pressure in your chest or your stomach, or a nauseous feeling? Are you feeling sort of tense in shoulders? Is it more one side than the other? Are you feeling pins and needles or spiky daggers somewhere? So just notice what sensations you are feeling when you think about your eczema. And now I want you to notice if these sensations had a color, what color would they be? The black or gray or red or a vomit green or a murky yellow, what color would these sensations be? And if you want to, you can give these sensations an emotion if there's an associated emotion. What I commonly see is anger and frustration, or hopelessness, sadness or guilt. Could be something else. Shame, loss, worry. So just notice what emotion is coming up for you now. And now I want you to notice what color pops into your mind when you think about that energy that you're feeling in your body, that sensation. What color would you like to bring in to lift and lighten that original color? So, for example, if you were feeling sort of red anger in your stomach or red stabbing energy in your stomach, what color would you like to bring in now to lift and lighten that red energy in your stomach? Any color, it does not matter. It could be white, it could be multiple colors, it could be rainbow colors. Whatever's popped into your head is perfect for you. And now I want you to imagine that color coming in to lift and lighten that original color that you're feeling in your body. That every single cell of your body is just being filled with this beautiful healing color that you're bringing in. You're wrapping yourself around. This color is wrapping itself around you, enveloping you like a beautiful cloak, and lifting and lightening that original color. Just imagine that beautiful new healing color energy coming in from the top of your head, down into your eye, behind your eyes, down into your neck and your throat, across your shoulders, down your arms and into your fingertips, and from down into your chest, your abdomen, your pelvis, down your legs, all the way to your feet and to your toes, grounding you right down to the center of the earth. This beautiful healing color. And just breathe it in. Breathe it into your lungs. Breathe it into that space where you were feeling that initial energy, those initial sensations, just to lift and lighten and dissolve that away. Just take a comfortable breath in with a big sigh out. And gently start to wriggle your fingers and wriggle your toes. And just come back to this space. Come back to the room. Just notice how you feel now. What's happened to that original sensation or emotion that you were feeling at the start when you thought about your eczema? Is it there? Is it less? Or is it gone now? For some of you, it'll be a little bit less. And for some of you, it will be gone now. And for some of you, it may still be the same. This is just a little snippet. When I work together with people, obviously, I would tailor it to what you're needing. But this is just a little sneak peek into how we can shift your body from that sympathetic nervous system state, that high stress state. We're actually looking at processing and clearing out those intense emotions that you're still feeling and shifting the body into this parasympathetic nervous state. Some people might notice in this process, and usually when I do it for a little bit longer with you, we go through some other steps after this, but this is just the initial process. Some people might start to yawn. They might start to feel some gurgling in their tummy. They might start to feel teary. That's all a normal process of coming into this more parasympathetic nervous system as we start to release those emotions and those sensations in the body. So this is what I do in the Happy Skin method for my private clients. We start here and then we work our way through processing what needs to be processed and cleared out of this inflammatory bucket that we all have, so that our bodies can come into this beautiful place of resting and digesting, and the skin can start to begin to heal. I hope that's been helpful for you. Please pop in the comments below if you have any questions or how you've actually felt after doing that little snippet of work to bring your body from the sympathetic nervous system state, overdrive, into this parasympathetic nervous system state. And yeah, please reach out to me if you have any questions or if you would like to know more about the Happy Skin method. Would love to chat with you. And feel free to replay that little snippet anytime you need to. I'll have some other videos soon on another technique that I use for eczema as well. It's a bit more of a DIY approach, which I tend to just give to my clients after a one-on-one session with me. We work very specifically on what needs to be worked, and then it's a little bit of extra 3 to 5 minutes each day, or whenever you're feeling stressed, anxious, frustrated, angry about your eczema. And that can really also bring the nervous system right down from that sympathetic inflammatory state into this beautiful resting and digesting healing state. My name's Dr. Melissa Raymond. It's been a pleasure to chat with you this afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.